He leaned across the buffet table, eyes cold, voice loud enough to slice through the chatter. "Look at you," my brother sneered, raising his glass. "A grown woman with nothing to show for herself, a disgrace to this family." Forks froze midair. Someone laughed nervously. The room went silent. Uncle Robert stopped chewing. Aunt Marie's mouth fell open. My younger cousins stared at their plates. My mother's hand trembled against her wine glass, but she said nothing. She never did, not when it came to Marcus. He was the golden child, the favorite, the one who could do no wrong. And I was Adeline, the quiet one, the reliable one, the invisible daughter who paid her bills and never made waves. My face burned. Heat crawled up my neck and spread across my cheeks. But I didn't move. I didn't defend myself. I didn't cry. Inside, something went very still, very cold, very awake. I looked at Marcus across the candle-lit table, his smug face glowing with satisfaction, and I realized something terrifying and liberating at the same time. He didn't know who I really was anymore. That night would be remembered as the moment everything changed. I stood there holding my plate, the weight of shame pressing down on my shoulders like a heavy coat. But underneath the embarrassment, something else was growing. A strange, quiet calm. I looked around the room at the faces of people I'd known my entire life. My father avoided my eyes. My mother sipped her wine and looked away. Marcus's wife laughed softly, covering her mouth with her hand like this was all just harmless fun. No one defended me. No one said a word. The silence was deafening. It wrapped around me like fog, thick and suffocating. But instead of drowning in it, I felt myself rising above it. My grip tightened on the edge of my plate. My breathing slowed. I wasn't angry, not yet. Anger would come later. Right now I am calculating, observing, recording. Marcus raised his glass higher, turning to the rest of the family. "To be honest," he said, grinning. "Someone had to say it." A few people clinked their glasses reluctantly. I set my plate down gently on the table. I didn't slam it. I didn't storm out. I just placed it down, smoothed my dress, and walked calmly toward the door. My name is Adeline Monroe, and until that evening I had spent my entire life shrinking to survive. I'm 32 years old, unmarried, and I work as a senior analyst at Crawford & Associates, one of the top consulting firms in the city. I'm good at my job. Actually, I'm better than good. I've closed deals worth millions. I've saved projects from collapse. I've turned failing strategies into success stories. But no one in my family knows that. To them, I'm just the daughter who never got married. The one who didn't give them grandchildren. The one who lives alone in a small apartment and doesn't brag about her accomplishments. Marcus, on the other hand, is the star. 3 years older than me, he's loud, charming, and impossible to ignore. He works in sales at the same firm, a few floors above me. He drives a luxury car. He wears expensive suits. He talks about his wins at every family gathering. Everyone believes he's brilliant. But I know the truth. I've always known. And tonight, something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, final crack that changed everything. Growing up, Marcus was the center of everything. He got the best birthday parties, the most expensive gifts, the loudest cheers at his soccer games. I got hand-me-downs and quiet pats on the head. "Adeline is so responsible," they'd say. "She never complains." Being responsible was code for being forgettable. Marcus could fail a test and get ice cream. I could ace one and get a nod. He could break the curfew and get a lecture. I could come home early and get ignored. I learned quickly that the way to survive in my family was to stay small, to be competent without being noticed, to fix problems without asking for credit. So I did. I became the daughter who always helped, who never caused drama, who cleaned up messes and asked for nothing in return. And Marcus, he learned that he could get away with anything. That charm and confidence mattered more than effort. That someone would always clean up after him, usually me. I stopped resenting him years ago. Resentment takes energy. Instead, I just accepted it. Until tonight. Tonight, I realized acceptance was killing me. What most people don't know is that Marcus and I work at the same firm. Crawford & Associates is massive, with over 300 employees spread across multiple departments. He's in business development on the 8th floor. I'm in strategic operations on the 5th. We rarely cross paths during the day. When we do, he treats me like a stranger. No eye contact in the elevator, no acknowledgement in meetings. At work, I don't exist to him, and that used to hurt. But over the years, I realized it was a gift. It meant I could see him clearly, watch how he operates, notice the patterns. Marcus has a reputation at Crawford. He's known as the guy who lands the big clients. The smooth talker who can close any deal. Leadership loves him, but I've worked on enough cross-functional projects to see the truth. He doesn't close deals alone. He relies on analysts like me to do the research, on coordinators to fix his mistakes, on junior staff to cover his gaps. He takes credit, we stay invisible, and no one questions it because Marcus is confident, charismatic, loud, and in corporate America, loudness often wins, but not forever. I drove home in silence that night, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The city lights blurred past my window. My apartment was dark when I arrived. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat on my couch in the darkness, replaying his words over and over. A disgrace. Nothing to show for herself. The way everyone laughed. The way no one defended me. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind was racing, not with anger, but with clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about how to fix things. I wasn't wondering what I did wrong. I wasn't trying to figure out how to make peace. I was thinking about the truth, the real truth, not the story Marcus told, not the version my family believed. The documented, provable, undeniable truth. And I realized something powerful. I had spent years being invisible. But invisible doesn't mean powerless. Invisible means you see everything. You hear everything. You know everything. And nobody realizes you're dangerous until it's too late. I picked up my phone. I opened my work email, and I started looking. The next morning at work, I didn't confront Marcus. I didn't send angry emails. I didn't complain to HR. I just watched. I attended meetings and took notes. I reviewed project files and saved documents. I listened to conference calls and recorded details. Marcus operated the same way he always had. Confidently. Carelessly. He walked into the Monday strategy meeting 20 minutes late, coffee in hand, and interrupted the presenter mid-sentence. Yeah, we've heard this before, he said, waving his hand dismissively. Let's talk about the Harrington deal. I'm closing it this week. Everyone turned to him. He launched into a story about how he'd won over the client with a brilliant pitch, how they were thrilled with his vision, how the contract was practically signed. I said nothing. But I pulled up the Harrington file on my laptop. The pitch he claimed was his. It was written by Julia in marketing. The financial model, built by Derek in analytics. The client relationship, maintained by Sandra in account management for 2 years before Marcus ever got involved. He didn't build anything. He just showed up at the finish line and took the trophy. 2 days later, there was a tense moment in the executive conference room. The Harrington client had questions about the contract terms, specific, detailed questions about risk allocation and performance metrics. Marcus was supposed to lead the call. I was invited as backup support, which was code for be ready to save him if he fumbles. The call started smoothly. Marcus was charming, confident, deflecting questions with jokes and vague assurances. But then the client's CFO asked a direct question about liability caps. Marcus froze, just for a second, but I saw it. He stumbled over his words, tried to redirect, then glanced at me. His eyes screamed to help me. I could have saved him. I had the numbers memorized. I knew the contract inside and out, but instead I stayed silent. I looked down at my notes. I let the silence stretch. Finally, our VP stepped in and answered the question himself. The call ended awkwardly. Afterward, Marcus cornered me in the hallway. "Why didn't you back me up in there?" he hissed. I looked at him calmly. "I wasn't sure what you wanted me to say. You seemed to have it under control." His jaw tightened. He walked away without another word. The truth is, I've been quietly building my reputation at Crawford for 9 years. I don't brag, I don't self-promote, but my work speaks for itself. I've led 12 major strategic overhauls. I've saved 4 clients from walking away. I've trained half the junior analysts in the department. My performance reviews are flawless. My project completion rate is 97%. I've been offered promotions twice, but I turned them down. Not because I didn't want them. Because I wasn't ready. Leadership roles come with visibility, and I wasn't ready to be visible, not yet, but I've been documenting everything. Every project I've contributed to, every problem I've solved. Every time someone else took credit for my work, I keep a folder on my personal cloud drive. It's organized by year, by project, by client. Emails, reports, presentations, time-stamped, thorough, undeniable. I didn't create it for revenge. I created it for survival. Because in a company like Crawford, if you don't advocate for yourself, you disappear. And I've spent long enough being invisible. When the VP announced a new cross-functional initiative called Project Vanguard, I knew it was my opportunity. Vanguard was a high-stakes client retention strategy involving 3 departments: business development, strategic operations, and client relations. It was worth $20 million. Marcus was assigned as the business development lead. I volunteered to co-lead from strategic operations. My manager looked surprised when I raised my hand, but she approved it. Marcus didn't even notice. At the kickoff meeting, he dominated the conversation. He laid out his vision, assigned tasks, and made it clear he was in charge. I took notes. I smiled. I said very little. Over the next 3 weeks, I worked quietly. I built financial models. I coordinated with client relations. I drafted the presentation deck. Marcus held court in meetings, talking about big ideas and bold moves. But he didn't do the actual work. He never does. By week 4, the presentation to the executive board was scheduled. Marcus assumed he'd be presenting alone, but the VP invited both of us. "Adeline's been integral to this," she said. "She should present the operational strategy." Marcus's smile faltered, but he nodded. "Of course, team effort." I could see it in his eyes, the first flicker of concern. I didn't sleep much in the weeks that followed, not because I was stressed, but because I was planning. I wasn't planning revenge, I was planning the truth. There's a difference. Revenge is emotional, it's messy. It's about hurting someone because they hurt you. Truth is cold. It's surgical. It's about revealing what was always there. Late at night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, going through years of project files. I made a timeline, a map of every major deal Marcus had been credited with. Then I traced them back. Where did the work actually come from? Who did the research? Who built the models? Who wrote the proposals? The pattern was clear. Marcus was a front man, a face, a voice, but the engine behind every success, it was people like me, people he never acknowledged, people he never thanked. I didn't feel angry as I pieced it together. I felt calm, focused. I wasn't tearing him down. I was simply organizing the facts, and facts, when arranged correctly, are devastating. All I had to do was wait for the right moment, and let the truth do the rest. The day of the Vanguard presentation arrived. The executive boardroom was packed. CEO, CFO, VPs from every department. Marcus wore his best suit. He was confident, relaxed, cracking jokes before the meeting started. I sat quietly beside him with my laptop and notes. The VP introduced us both. Marcus stood first and launched into his pitch. He talked about vision, innovation, and client relationships. He used words like synergy and disruption. He was good. Give him that. He knew how to work a room. But when he got to the operational details, he stumbled. He gestured to a slide I had built and said, "As you can see, our financial model projects a 35% ROI over 2 years. The CFO frowned. "That's not what the slide says. It says 18%. Marcus blinked. He looked at the screen. He'd been using an outdated version of the deck. My version, the correct one, was different. He tried to recover. "Right, yes, 18. That's what I meant. But the damage was done. The room shifted. Then the VP turned to me. "Adeline, can you walk us through the operational strategy?" I stood. I was calm, clear. I explained the model, the risks, the mitigation strategies. I answered every question, and I watched the room lean in. 2 weeks later, Marcus was scheduled to present to the Harrington client for final contract approval. It should have been a formality, a victory lap, but the client had concerns, specific concerns about deliverables and timelines. The meeting was tense from the start. Marcus tried his usual charm, but the client wasn't interested in smooth talk. They wanted answers, hard answers. "Who's managing the implementation timeline?" the client's COO asked. Marcus hesitated. "We have a full team on that." "Who specifically?" I could have jumped in, but I didn't. Marcus fumbled through an answer. He named people who weren't even on the project. The client exchanged glances. After the meeting, the client requested a follow-up call. But they didn't ask for Marcus. They asked for me and the VP. I took the call the next day. I answered every question. I provided documentation. I reassured them. By the end of the call, the client was satisfied, but they made one request. "We'd like Adeline to be the primary point of contact moving forward. No offense to Marcus, but she clearly knows this project inside and out." The VP agreed. Marcus wasn't on the call. But word travels fast at Crawford. By the end of the week, everyone knew. I didn't celebrate, I didn't gloat, I just kept working. But quietly, I began organizing my documentation. Not for an attack, but for accuracy. I had emails where Marcus took credit for my work. I had meeting notes where I solved problems he created. I had project files showing who actually did the work. I didn't plan to use it, not unless I had to. But I knew this wasn't over. Marcus's reputation was cracking. And when people's images start to crumble, they get desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. I just had to wait. One afternoon, I was working late when my desk phone rang. It was the VP. "Adeline, can you come to my office?" My heart skipped, but I stayed calm. When I arrived, she closed the door and gestured for me to sit. "I've been reviewing the Vanguard project," she said, "and I have to ask you something." I nodded. She leaned forward. "How much of that work was yours?" It was a simple question, but it changed everything. I could have deflected, I could have said it was a team effort, but I didn't. I looked her in the eye. "Most of it." She didn't look surprised. She looked relieved, like she'd suspected it all along. "Can you walk me through it?" So I did, calmly, clearly, no emotion, just facts. I pulled up the project files on my laptop and showed her the timeline. I showed her the original drafts I'd written, the models I'd built, the client emails I'd managed. I showed her timestamps, document histories, everything. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and exhaled slowly. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" "Because I didn't need to," I said. "I was focused on doing good work, not getting credit." She nodded slowly. "That's admirable. But it's also a problem." I didn't respond. She leaned forward. "Adeline, we value people who deliver results, but we also value honesty. And if someone is taking credit for work they didn't do, that's a serious issue." "I'm not accusing anyone," I said carefully. "I'm just answering your question." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I'm going to initiate a formal review of the Vanguard project, just to make sure we have a clear record of contributions. For future evaluations." My stomach tightened, but I kept my face neutral. "Of course." As I walked out of her office, I felt it. The shift. The ground beneath Marcus was starting to crack, and I hadn't even pushed. I just told the truth. The review process was quiet but thorough. Leadership pulled reports. They interviewed team members. They reviewed email chains and project files. Marcus heard about it, of course. He tried to laugh it off. "Just corporate formalities," he told people in the break room. "They love their paperwork." But I saw the tension in his jaw, the way his confidence was starting to fray. He cornered me one afternoon near the elevators. "Did you say something to the VP?" he asked, his voice low. I looked at him calmly. "She asked me a question, I answered it. What did you tell her?" "The truth." His eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I told her what I worked on, that's all." He stepped closer. "You're trying to make me look bad." I didn't flinch. "I'm not trying to do anything, Marcus. I'm just doing my job." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away, but I could see it, the fear. The realization that his carefully constructed image was starting to fall apart. And there was nothing he could do to stop it, because you can't fight the truth. You can only run from it. 2 weeks later, leadership called a closed-door meeting. Marcus was invited. So was I, so were the VPs from our departments and someone from HR. My hands were steady as I walked into the conference room. Marcus was already there, sitting stiffly in his chair. His face was pale. The VP from Business Development started the meeting. "We've completed our review of Project Vanguard and several other initiatives. We wanted to discuss our findings." She pulled up a presentation on the screen. It showed contribution breakdowns, task assignments, deliverables, and next to each one a name. My name appeared again and again. Marcus's name appeared far less than anyone expected. The room was silent. The HR representative spoke next. "Marcus, we need to ask you directly. Did you misrepresent your level of involvement in these projects?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "I coordinated everything. I was the lead. That's leadership." "Leadership involves delegation," the VP said, "but it also involves transparency. And based on our findings, there's a significant gap between the credit you've taken and the work you've actually done." He tried to argue. He tried to charm me. He tried to deflect, but they had the receipts, timestamps, emails, reports, everything I'd quietly documented over the years. Finally, he looked at me. His eyes were filled with something I'd never seen before. Not anger. Fear. That night, my phone lit up. Text after text. My mother, my father, Aunt Marie, even Marcus's wife. "What's happening at your company?" "Marcus says there's been a misunderstanding." "Can you talk to your managers? Fix this." I stared at the messages. The same people who'd sat silently while Marcus humiliated me were now asking me to save him. I typed one response and sent it to everyone. "I can't fix this. This isn't about me. It's about his work performance." That's between him and the company. My mother called immediately. Adeline, please, he's your brother. He called me a disgrace, I said quietly. In front of everyone, and none of you said a word. She was silent. You can't just let him fall apart, she finally said. I'm not letting him do anything, I replied. He did this to himself. I hung up. I turned off my phone, and for the first time in my life I felt free, not because I'd hurt him, but because I'd finally stopped protecting him. I'd stopped carrying his weight. And it was the lightest I'd ever felt. At work, Marcus's behavior changed. The charm was gone. He snapped at assistants. He missed deadlines. He argued in meetings. He was unraveling. People started avoiding him. Clients requested other points of contact. Junior staff stopped asking for his input. His desperation was visible, and it made everything worse. Because when someone's mask falls off, people don't just see the truth. They see all the times they were fooled, and they resent it. One afternoon, he tried to take credit for a proposal I'd written. He forwarded it to leadership with his name at the top. But I'd already sent the original version with timestamps to the VP. She called him into her office within the hour. I don't know what was said. But when he came out, his face was red. His hands were shaking. He walked past my desk without looking at me, and I realized something. I didn't need to destroy him. He was destroying himself. All I had to do was stop holding up the illusion, and gravity did the rest. The final meeting happened on a Thursday morning. Marcus was called into the executive conference room. So was I, but this time I wasn't sitting next to him. I was sitting across from him. The VP from Business Development, the CFO, and the head of HR were present. Marcus, the VP began, we've completed a comprehensive review of your performance over the past 3 years, and we've identified significant concerns. She listed them. Misrepresentation of contributions. Failure to meet deliverables. Reliance on junior staff without acknowledgement. Erosion of client trust. Marcus tried to defend himself, but every argument he made, they countered with documentation. Emails, reports, client feedback. Finally, the HR director spoke. Effective immediately, you're being removed from all leadership roles. You'll be reassigned to a junior position with a 90-day performance review. If improvements aren't made, we'll have to discuss next steps. Marcus's face went white. He looked at me. This is because of her, isn't it? The VP's voice was sharp. This is because of your actions, Marcus, no one else's. He stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor, and he walked out. The room was silent. Then the VP turned to me. Adeline, we'd like to discuss a different matter with you. My heart was pounding, but I kept my face calm. We've been impressed with your work, the CFO said. Not just on Vanguard, but across multiple projects. You've consistently delivered results without recognition. That ends now. The VP slid a folder across the table. We're offering you a senior leadership position, Director of Strategic Operations. It comes with a significant raise, a team, and a seat in executive planning meetings. I stared at the folder. I'd never asked for this. I'd never chased a promotion, but I'd earned it. We know you've turned down promotions before, the VP continued. But we're hoping you'll reconsider. We need people like you in leadership. People who lead by example, who does the work, who told the truth. I opened the folder. The offer was more than I'd imagined. I looked up. Can I have 24 hours to think about it? They smiled. Of course. As I walked out of that room, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was seen. And it wasn't because I'd fought for it. It was because I'd finally stopped hiding. The news spread through the family within days. Marcus told his version, that I'd sabotaged him, that I'd lied to leadership, that I'd ruined his career out of jealousy. Some people believed him. My father called me, his voice cold. You should have protected your brother. He didn't protect me, I said. I'm disappointed in you, Adeline. I'm not, I said, and I hung up, but others reached out differently. My younger cousin sent me a text. I always knew you were stronger than you looked. Proud of you. A former coworker from years ago sent an email. I heard what happened. About time someone held him accountable. Even Aunt Marie called. I should have said something at that dinner, she said quietly. I'm sorry I didn't. I didn't need their apologies, but it was nice to hear them. The family fractured. Some sided with Marcus, some sided with me, some just stayed silent. And I realized I didn't need them to pick a side. I didn't need their validation. I'd spent my whole life waiting for my family to see me, but I didn't need them anymore. I saw myself, and that was enough. I accepted the promotion. My first day as Director of Strategic Operations felt surreal. I had an office, a team, a voice in decision-making. People listened when I spoke, not because I was loud, but because I was right. Marcus stayed at the company for 6 weeks, then he resigned. He took a job at a smaller firm, a significant step down. I didn't celebrate his departure. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt relieved. Because his presence had been a weight I didn't realize I was carrying. Without him, I could breathe, I could lead, I could build something that was mine. One afternoon, I ran into him in the parking garage. We hadn't spoken since the final meeting. He stopped when he saw me. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then he spoke. "You could have helped me." I looked at him. "I did help you for years, you just never noticed." He didn't respond. He just walked away, and I let him go. Not with anger, not with bitterness, just with the quiet knowledge that I didn't owe him anything anymore. I'd spent my life being his safety net. Now I am building my own. 6 months later, there was another family gathering. A cousin's wedding. I almost didn't go, but I decided I wouldn't let fear keep me away. When I arrived, the energy was different. Marcus wasn't there. He declined the invitation. My mother greeted me stiffly. My father barely looked at me, but others approached me warmly. My younger cousins asked about my new job. Aunt Marie hugged me tightly. Even my grandmother, who rarely spoke, squeezed my hand and said, "You did the right thing." I didn't need their approval, but it felt good to be seen, not as the quiet one, not as a disgrace, but as someone who'd found her voice. During the reception, I stood outside on the terrace looking at the city lights. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my VP. "Great work on the client pitch today. Leadership is thrilled." I smiled. For the first time in my life, I wasn't defined by my family's expectations. I wasn't shaped by Marcus's shadow. I was just me, Adeline Monroe, strong, capable, free, and that was more than enough. I left the wedding early, not because I was upset, but because I had work in the morning, a big presentation, a project I was leading. As I drove home, I thought about that night at the family dinner, the moment Marcus called me a disgrace, the moment everything changed. He thought he was tearing me down, but he woke me up. He forced me to stop hiding, to stop shrinking, to finally stand up and claim the space I deserved. I didn't destroy Marcus. I didn't plot revenge. I didn't sabotage him. I just stopped protecting him. I stopped covering for him. I let the truth speak for itself. And the truth was louder than any insult he could ever throw at me. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I felt lighter than I had in years. I'd walked away from his shadow, and I'd stepped into my own light. Not with rage, not with bitterness, but with clarity, dignity, and a future built on my own terms. I wasn't the woman he called a disgrace anymore. I was untouchable, and he was standing alone in the wreckage of a life destroyed by his own arrogance, while I walked forward, stronger and finally free. What would you do in this situation? Would you have spoken up sooner, or would you have waited for the truth to reveal itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful true stories about justice, resilience, and finding your voice. Your support means everything. Thank you for being part of this community.